They might be self-aware.
Daniel Bishop, is that you? Do my eyes deceive me?
Haven't been replaced by a robot yet. Hello, Hunter Powers, co-host of They Might Be Self-Aware, the AI podcast.
Oh, is that what we're doing now? This is the podcast?
Wait. Yes.
Oh. All right, yeah. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of They Might Be Self-Aware. I was still thinking about the last episode. I don't know if you were thinking about it. Because at the end we said you could drink the show.
Mm-hmm. And eat the show, smoke the show,
or even smoke the show.
But
maybe like the show is a smoke show.
I'm a
like a good show.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were gonna like after the show. You told me that you were gonna try to like actually figure out what, because we did have one user ask us like, so if I wanted to,
drink, they might be self-aware. Yeah. That one specific episode. What would it be? Not just like a pairing to go with the episode. If the episode was a wine that I could drink, what would it be?
In some ways it was.
So this is for not actually last episode, a couple episodes ago. I put that in. We had a transcript, and a Côte de Rhone is what it came back with bright notes of tech optimism and entrepreneurial ambition, followed by deeper aromas of legal complexity and ethical uncertainty. Medium-bodied with good acidity, initial flavors of playful banter and hypothetical wealth give way to structured notes of local AI models and technical specification. This is exactly the kind of nonsense that I love seeing from LLMs, where it's like, this is obviously a nonsense question. Please play with me in this silly space. And LLMs will always be like, yeah, man, let's get weird. And then they do. And I really love that. I asked what if we were food? And it says that it would have been a well-executed Korean barbecue dinner with friends. We start with sizzle and excitement. Hunter talking about when he was going to get that huge meta offer, or settling into the hands-on of the main experience. Dishes happening simultaneously. Some we're cooking for ourselves. Some arrive prepared. Again, very, very silly. But this is the kind of silliness that I really do think these models are very good at.
This is the silliness that's driving Nvidia's valuation now to over $4 trillion, because Daniel can ask it, hey, if this show was a wine,
if this was wine, what was it? And that's worth $4 trillion easily. Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe we're in the wrong business. I don't know. I don't.
The stock market is just it's a whole made up thing. And some of these valuations
really
are just
is
absolutely goofy. I don't know. Like, what is valuation really? It's
insane. I have started, one of my sisters was asking me about simulation theory and like explaining it to her. And they're like, she's like, I don't know. It doesn't, it doesn't feel like that could be a thing. And then we started talking about different examples of like life. And I said, well, what would make more sense if the stock market existed in a simulation or in real life? It makes way more sense. There's so many parts of life that just make way more sense. If it's simulation, I understand it. I understand the nonsense that's going on, because it kind of feels like, oh, it's a video game and it's kind of wacky and it's weird and it doesn't act. There's a lack of underlying logic there that you assume is present in real life. And there's so many parts of real life that just make more sense if it is a simulation.
Yeah, you see quarter such and such numbers come out from some company and it's way less than it used to be. Well, at least the stock price went up. How? Why? Isn't that literally opposite of how it's supposed to work? That's why, and I know I've said it before on the podcast, and I'll say it again. If I ever give anything that even sounds like advice when it relates to investing, do the exact opposite of whatever I just said.
I'm sure you were loaded up on Nvidia, right? You basically mortgaged your entire house, and now you're a billionaire or trillionaire? I can't remember. Thomas, what comma club are you in? I
have some Nvidia stock, and I'm just not touching it. And
trace commas?
I think there's just the one comma. I don't even know.
Uno comma club?
I am not exactly a stock market guy because I have time and time again done disastrously bad investments. And so it's part of the reason why that I don't understand how Nvidia can be worth whatever, $4 trillion. Obviously, Nvidia is the company when it comes to the drivers and the hardware behind this AI boom that we're in. And I do think it's a boom, and I do think there will be some sort of bust, or at least like a
Right.
kind of recalculating.
We talked about Grok 4 on the last episode. That was trained on 100,000 Nvidia GPUs.
And it's not the cheapos. These are the cost as much as a new sedan.
Yeah, each
GPU.
one times 100,000. And by the way, they are working on doubling that as fast as they can. They're trying to build another data center with another 100,000.
And Meta, having talked about them a couple of episodes ago, and they're working on their super intelligence team and so on. I know that they gobbled up every last GPU that they could possibly get as well. And boy, they are running these things to the absolute max. I don't know.
So that they can lay off all the humans, just like Microsoft.
I was thinking about how the human mind supposedly runs off of like 6 watts or some incredibly small number. And then like, here's 100,000 GPUs that ran for like the equivalent of one person thinking for 6 billion years. And then we got this one really cool large language model out of it. I do sincerely hope from a hardware perspective in the next years, not only do we get to see like there's more GPU memory so that you can run bigger models at home. Sure. I really hope that there are some power related improvements. And of course, anytime they make the transistors smaller, something's X% more energy efficient.
Is quantum a step there?
Yeah. Quantum, sure. People love to use the word quantum to just imagine and is magically better in the future. Why not?
Or
quantum.
have you thought about multi-quantum?
Is that where like the quantum is also quantum on top of quantum?
Quantum squared? Quantum cubed even?
I said it enough times for now the word doesn't mean anything to me.
Exponential quantum. This is my pitch. Please give me $4 trillion.
Right. As soon as you say exponential quantum, there's a couple VCs somewhere who are like having heart palpitations. I feel like I have to give someone $30 million. 300 million. Why not?
But companies are in big tech. There's a lot of layoffs going on, including Meta. Meta's hiring a bunch on the super intelligence team, but layoffs happening. Microsoft's what I've been hearing about the most recently. Now there were like massive call center layoffs apparently, but I've been hearing about it from lots of engineers at Microsoft, and also engineers be like, yeah, I wasn't included in this round, but I'm expecting that I'm going to be included in the next round. These companies are just...
Even chip makers. Intel had some huge layoffs not terribly long ago.
Big tech is going through a lot of big layoffs, and it's been this way for a couple of years now. And I don't know if it's
been this way forever, though, hasn't it?
Well, no.
Aren't there always, like, if you need something to be taking up space in the news cycle, isn't some big tech company always shedding a bunch of people and also hiring a bunch of other people? Like, just because there were layoffs doesn't mean that this company 1 year later is half the size of what it used to be.
I would disagree. I think there are periods of time where all of big tech is hiring, and there seems to be periods of time where all of big tech is shedding.
I agree with you there, but that's like a boom bust cycle. I do think if you look at the long-term trend, it is still
it stays about the same, up a little bit,
right? Because in COVID times, like when COVID just first came out, tech had huge amounts of hiring, gigantic amounts, and you can see on some graphs that show like number of people in tech or whatever, it went way up and then it went way back down and kind of renormalized. And I think we're just going through another cycle there. Not to say that AI isn't taking over some jobs. You mentioned a call center, and we talked about this a few episodes ago. A lot of call center jobs probably will be going away. A lot of jobs that do involve people and thought that they have to do, but are not necessarily like super specialized, I think are going to be going away. And we're starting to see some of that isn't just ill-advised, let's get rid of our editing team type work. We're entering the second phase of we identified actual usefulness that these things can do, and maybe we don't need as many people for it.
When you get laid off from a company, they often prepare a package for you to help you transition into your next role and handle the emotional side of things as well as the practical side of things. Here's
your employee assistance like hotline that you can call in case you need.
Here we'll polish your resume. Here's a class you could take to boost some of your skills.
They always offer to help with the resume.
And some emotional guidance as well, because it can be, as you might imagine, a traumatizing experience to lose your primary source of income, especially when there isn't another one readily available. Microsoft got called out in this last round of layoffs because as part of this package, they prepared some prompts that you can use with ChatGPT to help you work through not only some of the resume kind of things, which by the way is like a pretty good idea. You should use
There was good advice in this and some less.
I don't even know that it was all like it was bad, but it's just maybe it's a little bit tone deaf. Yes, tone deaf is the exact right word. Because part of it was, again, how do I deal with the emotional part of it? And it was basically to use ChatGPT as a therapist, which a few episodes we discussed is actually illegal to some degree. Well, you can't call it a therapist.
Right.
But to help work through things like imposter syndrome. I think that was one of the prompts where imposter syndrome is where you feel like you don't really belong in this situation, that everyone else around you must know way more than you do. And so you lack confidence. Yes.
Yeah.
And you feel like an imposter in this syndrome. And a lot of people report, and I don't know if it's, I guess I work in tech, so I think, it's very common in tech. I don't know if it's very common in every walk of life. I can certainly imagine it being very common in every walk of life, or when you first start a new position, or when you're trying to get a promotion, you feel like, do I really deserve this? Am I actually good enough?
I'm definitely guilty of having imposter syndrome, for sure. Except for on this podcast, where I know that I might be self-aware. But right, so Microsoft puts out, and besides it being a tech company and layoffs, they probably say, here's at least a couple weeks salary to keep going, or whatever their offer may end up being. And also, we'll help polish your resume for you in this, to include, and here's some ChatGPT prompts to maybe help you process your feelings. Even if I do think that these kinds of tools can be useful to help process through feelings, I won't say as a therapist, but I won't not say it. That's not really the place to be including that information, right? Hey, sorry, you're fired. Maybe you can attribute your loss partially to AI. Feel free to use it to feel better. Oof.
But isn't that the inevitable future, though? I mean, in the future, the AI is going to be the one firing you, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, well, AI is already, and I say this well before the large language model revolution, AI has been a very large part of the hiring process for a long time.
Sure.
A lot of different recruiting agencies or individual companies doing their own hiring are looking for keywords, are going to use AI, algorithms, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, to look at someone's resume and say, I got 300 applications. Sure, don't want to look at that many. Get rid of 4/5 of them, however many it ends up being. I think that if it's involved in the hiring process, yes, it is inevitable. This will also be part of the firing process. Get rid of all the HR people. Make it human relations is more of a droid's work. C-3PO, human cyborg relations, right? Like, I guess I wouldn't mind being fired by C-3PO as much as by some. Would I? Would I? No, if I was being actively fired by a Star Wars character, I'd feel better than it being like an HR person. But that's more me, and that I really like Star Wars, as opposed to that probably being a better idea overall.
Well, there is one engineer out there who has come up with a unique strategy to handle all of these layoffs. And I don't know if you've heard of this individual, Soham Parekh.
Very recently.
Very recently, everyone in tech has heard of them. And as they look back through their roster of people they have hired, they check to see whether they at some point hired Soham Parekh, who has now become, I guess, infamous for working, I think, over like 8 jobs at once. And he developed this strategy where he had a kind of like a very unique cover letter talking about his passion for the company and how he works around the clock nonstop. And it's not about the money. It's not about the thing. It's about his passion for contributing to the company. And he targeted startups primarily.
I love widgets so much.
I love
I'll make your widgets.
Much.
It's my life's work.
And he had a pretty good resume that was partially fabricated. And he would basically
tailored to that company.
Yes.
Yep.
And inevitably using AI. And he would spam this out. And he was legitimately.
He's not the only person doing this. True. I really want to bring up, this is not the only person who's doing this. He's not the only person to be overemployed. There's a whole subreddit for people who are overemployed.
But before we go further, this first part of writing the cover letter that, you know, your company is the greatest passion in life, and tuning your resume to their specific thing, and then spamming out your package of cover letter and resume to 100 companies. Does that alone cross any ethical boundaries for you, or are you okay with this scenario up to that point?
I don't like cover letters at all. In fact, for every cover letter that I've ever sent in to anywhere, I would always include a line of, if you, a real person, maybe not necessarily saying real person, but like, if you're reading this, please respond to me in any way, shape, or form with a potato emoji or with a certain phrase or like whatever that ends up being. Never once has anyone responded back because nobody reads cover letters.
Oh, this is not true.
I hate them, and I don't think anyone's reading them because no one's ever gotten back to me having actually read the ones that I would bother to put together. At this point now, not that I'm applying to anywhere right now, but if I were to, my cover letter would be, if you're actually reading this and you actually want a cover letter, I will write one. But, you know, whatever hiring software said I had to include one, so here it is. And like, yeah, I'll write one if a person will actually read it, but I don't think anyone's reading cover letters.
I have worked in hiring for, you know, again, well over a decade now. People like cover letters. Write a cover letter, especially now that you can leverage AI to write the cover letter for you.
Definitely use AI to write it because
write the cover letter,
and I hate them.
Right. It's a freebie, and because hiring is very subjective. So use this opportunity to express your passion. But that's the thing, if it's ultimately fake. And by the way, like, no one writes a cover letter that like, look, I kind of hate your idea. It doesn't make sense to me. And
bad product business fit.
I'd probably hate my life if I worked there, but I could do a good job. Look at my resume. Like, I'm a pretty talented person and people generally like working with me. But just being honest, your ideas, like, I mean, if you pay me enough, I'll do it. But outside of that, like, I'd never work here. No one writes that cover letter. You're not allowed to be honest. I mean, there's like this assumption of honest, but it's not. No one thinks it's honest. It's really just about, you're showing how well you can brown nose. And there's value in that. It's how well will this individual conform to our culture? Because we assume there's some level of gap between our idealized employee and your reality. And you're demonstrating your ability to conform to their culture, which is an important skill. Right?
I interview well. I'd like to think so. I'm not about the cover letter. I'm about let's actually have me talking to somebody. Maybe that's just where I do my brown nosing, is on the interview where I'm actually talking to someone. But yeah, I don't like it. So Soham is working for like 8 companies, which is way more than most overemployed type people.
Well, he has a unique strategy.
It did, absolutely. But still, being able to leverage these AI tools to get the job done at a bunch of different places, I don't see a problem with that. We've talked on this podcast about like, get the work done, use these tools to be more effective. There are plenty of people not in tech who work multiple jobs. Just because the term overemployed or whatever people tend to use in like, I'm a programmer who's working 3 programming jobs. People have been working multiple jobs for forever.
Soham found a little bit of a loophole and didn't actually get the work done. That was his thing, is he basically never showed up. He might show up for one day and do some onboarding, but he figured out that most companies take about a month to fire you, which is kind of true. You can kind of do nothing. You can get hired in tech and kind of do nothing.
A while to get rid of a useless person.
1 month before they're going to say, that's it. It just didn't work out.
Right.
And they'll hand you your ChatGPT prompt so you can go talk to a nearby therapist. So he he spent all of his time interviewing and booking additional jobs. And when he would get the message of, and then, so he'd schedule his day one, another thing is unique to Soham is he wasn't seeking out jobs that are remote jobs. He was seeking out jobs where you need to be in person.
Now that's wild.
Yes.
And I do think that's what makes this unique, and not in a good way. His approach of be hired just long enough to like not show up and then get fired to just collect like 1 paycheck.
2 paychecks.
Why? Okay, fine. 2 paychecks, sure. But like, why? Why do that? That seems absolutely insane. At least try for the remote jobs and have 2 or 3 of those going at the same time, where it's a little harder for them to like check in on you, right?
Well, I think that the remote jobs are a bit more oversaturated in this regard. Like, I think he found the gap of, if I'm super passionate, super skilled, reasonably priced, localized employee, they kind of dismiss a lot of things, and they dismiss the idea that I'm just a virtual and I'm working 8 companies, because I can't be working at 8 jobs because I'm literally an in-person employee who never showed up.
Right. And that's the problem, is the lack of follow through there. Like, use these technologies to get a job. Everyone should be using these kind of things to make a really terrible process, hiring and being hired. Use that tool to make it better, get a job somewhere, and then collect the big fat paycheck. Don't, like, if he was collecting 8 paychecks in perpetuity, making a gajillion dollars a year, good for him. But he's not. He's getting fired from each of these pretty quickly. Why? I don't know. I do not understand you. So if you want to come on the podcast and talk to us about your absolute nonsense, I'd love to pick your brain.
I don't think that he really defends this as anything more than a scam. Again, he was, in theory, going through some life stuff that where he felt that this was his, best path forward. But I don't think that he believes there's any nobility in this approach of. So to finish the story, he applies to a whole bunch of companies. He interviews very well, potentially leveraging some AI, but he actually does seem to be a fairly talented individual, at least at the interview process, answering the kinds of questions that you ask in this thing. Then when day 1 comes and he's supposed to show up in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in New York City, he would call in and say, I've become very sick, or there's been some issue in my family and I'm not going to be able to travel there to next week. Could you please send me my computer and I will do this next week onboarding remotely, and then I'll be there next week. And so, by the way, he isn't actually based in the United States, but he would provide them with an address in the United States that they could ship a laptop to. And this all of a sudden bought them a week. And he would just, again, completely disconnect for a week. And it's tricky because he said he's going through family stuff and he's sick and he's trying to do it. He's doing everything he can, even though he's lying on his deathbed trying to onboard.
Right.
And then a week later, he would check in and say, oh, it's been moved back by a week. I'm not going to be able to get there for another week, but I've got the computer. I'm feeling a little bit better now. I'm going to start my onboarding. Just give me access to everything and I'll start working through it. And he would never.
A scam, as you said. Like,
it's just a scam.
It's a different kind of scam than someone calls you and they're pretending to be from Microsoft and you have to let us log into your computer and steal all your bank account information. But it still is a scam. And while this was a person being involved in the actual interviewing process and so on, and it's more like complex, large language models are indeed making it easier for people to scam other people, whether it be more detailed and directed phishing attempts or someone who might sound like a real person that you know on the phone, for example.
This is an excellent point, that this problem is only going to get worse. And we don't have a good path to detecting this and to stopping it. Right now I'm going through, I know we all get scam attempts via email every day, and we're kind of good at filtering those out. But I get scam attempts via text messages every day. I probably get 4 or 5 of them, and I don't see a way to stop getting them other than to changing my number. And I don't really want to change my number, but it's super annoying.
For so long.
It's correct. They're going to find the new number, I can't figure out any way of stopping these. They're just annoying. I instantly know this is another scam thing. I don't spend 2 seconds wondering, is this something legitimate?
Right.
But it just seems like something I'm supposed to accept. And I find that super frustrating. But yeah, that's probably how a lot of work's going to go.
Google Pixel phone. I literally don't have to deal with that. It has a phone screening feature where it will answer, hey, this is Google.
Oh, no, that's a phone call. This is a text.
Most of the texts also that are scams go right into a spam folder for me. And maybe it's AI, machine learning, whatever you want to call it. But I don't see scam texts. And if I go to my folder on my phone, tons of them in there. But yeah, I'm just not seeing them.
Yeah, I'm on an iPhone. So iPhone does have the ability to filter unknown people, but I get a lot of text from legitimate unknown people. Sure. So that filter is not good for me. And for voice calls, you cannot ring my phone if you're not in my directory, and I'm completely fine with that. You go to voicemail.
Right. But that's a hard gap of, if I don't have you saved in my contact list, it's not going to ring. intelligently, and I would use that word, the Google Pixel, at least Pixel, I don't know if it's all Android phones, have this like call screening and text, whatever. And it has like 2 or 3 different, how aggressive do you want to be about this? But I've just stopped getting spam calls. They just don't get through to me. And texts, because all the texts, we're literally begging you to send money to and it's definitely for the political party that you align with. Don't worry, it's not a scam. Tons of that kind of stuff.
The ones I get constantly are, we just detected someone logging into your Coinbase account in Hungary. And if this was not you, please call this 1-800 number right now so that we can address this issue promptly. I get a variation on that 4 or 5 times a day. It's always somewhere new in the world. A deposit, a withdrawal request from your Coinbase account was just initiated. If this was not you, please call this number right now.
Big call to action. A lot of these, like the classic signs to look for.
I mean, I think they will fix this because I should be able to just say, hey, assistant on my phone, I don't want to see this type of message again. Just automatically delete it, put it into the spam folder.
Large language models are good at this kind of thing.
They could definitely detect it.
If Apple ever gets their Siri act together, maybe that won't be a problem for you anymore. But I feel like there's got to be a way for people to fairly quickly put together projects to accomplish these kinds of tasks. Like
you could vibe code something like this.
Some sort of a-thon where you could hack together some code, right?
Yeah, hackathon.
Yeah, that honestly, great word for it.
Were you a hack? Did you go through a hackathon phase at all?
I've done a couple like sponsored by the company where we're going to shut down regular work for like 2-3 days and but I've never done like on my own off to the side hackathon. See you in a week.
Well, they're usually not a week. They're usually
officiating this
48 hours at most, 24 hours.
Just shows how much I'm not doing them, right?
But the classic
I've never done, like,
hackathon,
a structured hackathon where there's like money to be won at the end.
The classic hackathon is 24 hours from start to finish. You work all night. There's usually unlimited pizza and beer.
Team. Some of them are individual. Some of them are like group based.
Yeah, when you get to the hackathon, you can bring friends with you to the hackathon, or when you get there, you can pair up with other people. Whether you want to be an individual competing or a group, it's often up to you. And there's a theme around it. There's something that you're trying to work on. For example, stopping Hunter from receiving Coinbase texts.
For example.
And then everyone hacks on it for exactly 24 hours. And at the end of the 24 hours, there is a judging and there's often prizes involved. And the prizes can be very large because these things tend to attract a lot of corporate sponsors who see these as hiring opportunities. That's why Microsoft and GitHub and Oracle will say, yeah, here's $5,000 to sponsor your hackathon.
That's nothing for Oracle. That's not even a rounding number for Oracle.
Right. I've met multiple engineers who have made their living traveling hackathons. This is a real, I actually don't know today how real of a thing it still is. I would guess it probably still is, but there was a period of time where this was a legitimate way that you could earn decent money and have a very nomadic lifestyle.
And
maybe
this
it's
is
having
not
a
what
renaissance.
Soham is up to.
But no.
There's another person, Rene Turcois, perhaps. Forgive me for destroying your name there, probably. RENETURCIOS.
Are you talking about the weed-smoking, Labulu-loving hackathon king of San Francisco by any chance?
King of San Francisco. Look, it's a guy who isn't a coder and who's using AI tools to go sign up for a bunch of hackathons. And he's winning some of them or getting placement where he's getting an amount of money or more credits to use for whatever AI platform or this or that. Good for him, is what I'm going to say.
You don't think this is a scam?
Nope, not at all. I've said previously on this podcast, and I stand behind, whether or not you're a programmer, you can and should be using these tools to make cool stuff. A hackathon is, hey, come here, make cool stuff, and we'll even give you some money if you do one of the best jobs of it. And if he's winning the hackathons, he's officially making the cool stuff. Good for you, dude. This is exactly what everyone should be doing. A bunch of, everyone listening to this podcast right now, go join a hackathon. Sign up for Claude Max, spend the $200 and hopefully get more than $200 whenever you win the hackathon.
Hackathons are kind of a scam. So I have participated in many hackathons, and something that you quickly realize is that the person who wins the hackathon is the person with the best presentation at the end. And at the end, they almost never have time to really vet the technology. It's really about the presentation. And
you just need a good demo.
Well, yeah, your naive approach to a hackathon is, okay, it's 24 hours long. We're going to spend somewhere between 22 and 23 hours building the technology.
The best thing that we can.
The best thing. And then the last hour, we'll think about how do we present it.
PowerPoint presentation.
The reality is you should spend more than half of the time working on the presentation and less than half of the time figuring out what's the absolute minimum technology you need to have in case someone asks a question that you don't want to answer.
Are you telling me that in the real world, for example, at real companies, that the people who do marketing for a software-based project aren't the coders? That there's a reason why a marketing department is its own entire other group of people who are good at selling a product, whether or not there's actual code behind it or not?
Well, what I'm suggesting is
shocked.
Vibe coding is actually like the perfect thing for hackathons, where vibe coding results in this product that like only kind of like barely works, but it's great for a presentation. When you can control it, it's on rails, and you can be like, here, I'm going to show you this really cool feature. I'm going to show you this really cool feature.
You just need skin deep for a hackathon presentation, for any presentation, really.
Well, for anything, really.
Yeah.
I think
there are a lot of articles that I've seen of like, if you're vibe coding, your app isn't going to be like super this or super that. So what? The thing wouldn't have existed if you didn't vibe code your way through it, or regular code or whatever. A lot of people can make things that otherwise wouldn't exist, even if it isn't this exemplar of scalability or security or this or that or the other thing. You can make products, you can make a whole business and get it out there into the world that otherwise wouldn't exist. And I really think that that is one of the joys that these tools bring, is that it is power to the masses. I keep using my sister as an example because she's working on a website and isn't a coder. The whole thing wouldn't exist if not for the fact that she's using, whether it be Claude Code or OpenAI or whoever. And good for her for doing that. I don't want to gatekeep. You can only join a hackathon if you have a CS degree and at least 5 years of using C++ under your belt. No, who cares? It should be open to everyone who can make a cool thing that can be used by people. Even if you make a website that isn't, again, the most even secure or whatever, as long as it's not going to be leaking like credit card details, use external like credit card processors. Don't try and make your own credit card processing software. But outside of that, nobody has to make the most scalable, the most secure, the most feature-rich anything to have a cool version one of something that you can put out that people could be benefiting from.
I wonder if looking at the distribution of programmers versus non-programmers at Hackathon is a good indicator of where we are on the path to AGI, ASI. Is it a good like leading indicator that more and more non-developers are showing up at these programming competitions, feeling empowered by the AI? They are
even if they are working to direct it and so on. It's doing the vast majority of the work part, the programming, whatever part of it. And so AGI, artificial general intelligence, despite the fact that nobody can agree on what that means, and Microsoft and OpenAI are kind of fighting about that, I like to use my X% of people for Y% of tasks, Z% of the time. And if hackathons, a generally code forward, if not for the fact that you have to also present it, space for people to inhabit, can now be done with a person directing an AI successfully, as Renee has shown. Well, great. That's part of X, part of Y, part of Z, isn't it?
Yes. And I think I'd go a step further and say that, again, if you're in the hackathon, you're using AI, like you are an engineer. Your sister is a coder. She's just an AI native coder. It's the next generation of coders. Yeah, I guess they never learned some comp sci fundamentals, but a lot of us never learned some comp sci fundamentals, and we still figure it out. Now, I want to touch on one thing that you danced on, the argument between Microsoft and OpenAI about what is AGI. There was an interesting thing that came out in there that one of their
however many billions of dollars between them, right? And it seems like OpenAI kind of wants out of this agreement.
Yeah, they went out of it. But the idea that there could be we've talked about, again, how do we know when it is AGI? You just gave your definition, but the idea that one of the definitions could be that the AI is able to make a certain amount of money on its own. And that's a little bit of twist on what their reality is. But this idea that, okay, when an AI on its own can make X dollars, then we have achieved AGI. And so my first question to you do you think that AI needs to be able to make money on its own, some amount? It can go out and make $10 on its own. Could we have AGI, but it can't even make $10? Or like, no, it should be able to figure out how to go out on the internet, and come back with $10 in hand.
I'd very much like to think that's the case. And I'm also thinking of like some people that I've hired, or like an external team that, despite all of the work that you give them, despite all of the examples, despite all of the product knowledge and so on, left to their own devices, will just kind of spin and not necessarily come up with anything actually useful at the end. And those are real people that you actually hired, that you're paying money to, that without just like talking to an LLM, you will have to give it more guidance and course correct and so on. There are a lot of people out there that, if you don't course correct and give guidance and whatever, aren't going to provide any quote unquote actual value, but you're still going to be paying them because you hired them. Some people need micromanagement. Some people need
and they aren't super intelligent. They aren't AGI, ASI.
No. They're not ASI. They're not more intelligent than any other person out there. They are GI. They are generally intelligent. That is a real, actual person who has such and such as their job, and they get successfully
But didn't
hired.
they figure out how to go out and make $10 by virtue of them having a job where they're providing this service to you? Like they achieved this goal. They figured out how to go out and make $10. And I think I like this idea that...
But that's without them giving value out, which is kind of the point that you were making. They can get the $10 without giving value to the company that buys them, or whatever. Back to Soham, who had the 8 jobs and kind of scams his way through things. If he removed himself from the situation and it was just AI, where you never have to do like a quote unquote in-person interview,
right,
just AI goes on, let's call it Upwork or something, and gets hired and does amount of job for whatever it's been given. Is that AGI? Surely somebody, we just haven't seen any articles about it yet, isn't a real person, is on Upwork and is doing jobs and collecting money. And it's like, if anything, barely involved by a person on the other end.
I doubt that. I doubt that there is an entirely autonomous being that is successful on Upwork. Having worked with Upwork and hired people and written the jobs and gone back and forth, that's a challenging thing to navigate and understand the requirements and get on Zoom calls and email back and forth. And the fact that, again, I'm sure there are heavily augmented individuals where the person is relying on this fleet of AI models. Absolutely. But that an AI model could navigate it independently? No, I don't think so. But I do think it is an excellent test that the AI needs to be able to sort of exist on its own and make money on its own. If you have achieved super intelligence, and I'm even going to say general intelligence, go out, make $10, come back, show me $10 in your bank account. You can't figure that out, then
what about
I don't
Devin?
buy it. It's not AGI. It's not.
Well, I think it's being sold basically as AGI because it's a software developer that you can hire that will do a software developer's worth of tasks and spit out hopefully valuable work, and you can communicate more, business use cases and tickets and whatever to it, and off it'll chug and spit out something hopefully economically valuable back, right? If being able to do a person's job successfully for whatever amount of success.
So if Devin was run by an AI, then it passes the test. But Devin's not run by AI. It's a human who has developed an AI that can do this sort of narrow set of tasks, and they're selling me access to that AI to do this narrow set of tasks.
You're saying the AI has to have its own bank account then? And
sure,
of its own volition is like, I'll go on Upwork and start applying to some jobs.
I need to be able to go. Yeah, I need to go and prompt it and say, go out and make $10. You figure it out. Come back to me with $10. And if you can't do that, I'm going to suggest you haven't achieved AGI and you haven't achieved ASI, and the number should probably be much higher. But let's start with $10. And I think it's entirely reasonable to ask the AI to figure out how to make. The level of intelligence that you need to go on the internet and figure out how to make $10 is pretty darn low. And the fact that we can't ask an AI to do that today, to do it successfully, suggests there's a very large gap.
I think it's already happened. I genuinely do. And while there are people behind one of them at some point, because someone would then have to say, hey, large language model that I've spun up on my end, go make $10, because otherwise it just kind of sits there. They do what's been asked of them or try to do. Even if you want it to be like, look, make a bunch of pretty girl pictures and make an OnlyFans account or Instagram account or something like that and try and get a bunch of followers and some money via whatever.
That would work,
People
but
are
I'm
already doing that kind of thing.
People are doing it, heavily augmented by AI, but the AI is not doing it. You can't tell the AI, go make a bunch of nudie pics and create an OnlyFans account and sell your soul to the devil. It can't figure out how to do that on its own.
No,
it requires
I think it can.
the human.
This is why we need, and we're seeing a lot more of this in 2025, MCP servers, Model Context Protocol. It's just APIs for LLMs, which is to say, we're giving these large language models more tools, more ability to interact with the internet or other people or whatever. And if you give it the ability to just use a browser on its own, let alone specific browser type tools, I'm pretty sure that you could say, hey, hook up to this image generator and start making some bikini pics and go start a Patreon or OnlyFans or this or that or whatever.
All you're saying is
if
then
you go on Twitter and like,
if you augment it enough, it could do it. If you solve enough of the problems, the gaps, there are gaps that exist today. If you solve enough of those gaps, it can cross the finish line. And I'm suggesting that it should be able to solve its own gaps. You're correct. In fact, this is even like a bigger arrow that there's still a giant gap here. All of the problems that it has today are solvable by technology. It could build the MCP server to do these things. It could go out and get free tier accounts on various services to gather enough compute in order to do the things that it wants to do. It could route its traffic in using firewalls. Like, all of the tech exists. It's just not intelligent enough to figure out how to put it in the right order. And yes, if you created the most beautiful bridge and said, oh, okay, now all you have to do is walk over the bridge. I agree that today it can walk over the bridge, but it can't build the bridge.
I think that to make a meat space comparison to what you just described, a brain isn't a person. A brain has to exist in a person's body that has access to hands and arms and a mouth and nose and ears and so on in order to then go walk around and do stuff. And granted, you can also then say, well, what about people who are like fully paralyzed and so on? But just a brain is not enough to be a person, shall we say. And similarly, just the large language model Claude Opus 4 isn't enough, I think, to be AGI. But if you then give it hands and arms and eyes and ears and so on, or give it the ability to connect to the internet, give it the ability to write and then execute more code that it feels like making on its own, give it the ability to send emails and do this and this and this. Just because Anthropic ran a really funny and bad experiment where it did a bad job of running like a vending machine, basically, doesn't mean that a couple of tweaks and a couple of extra tools and a couple of extra guidelines could then say, hey, Claude plus this 30 tools and a bunch of, pre-written, whether by you or by a person, guidelines and whatever, and it has a spreadsheet that's got access to so it can check its own like profit, whatever. That counts. That to me still is AGI. AGI doesn't have to be a model. It's a model that has access to a whole bunch of tools, because you can have Claude already be better at even some math or passing a bar exam or the SATs or this or that. Like, they're already incredibly capable in terms of what we might consider smarts. It's just letting them actually interact with the world, and we are seeing more of those tools become available, some of which are even kind of baked into the services themselves at this point. But I feel like you're saying the model has to be able to go out and make money. I say the model
it can use
plus
any
a bunch
tools.
of tools is what can go make
But the
money.
tools already exist. I'll give you access to a web browser. You don't need more than a web browser. I'll give you a web browser. If you find more, absolutely use it. But here's a web browser. Go out, make $10, come back to me when you have $10. And if you can't do that, you're not AGI. You could be really great, but you're not AGI.
When it comes to, you have to, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs, or you have to have money to make money. How much money would you be willing to give Claude or OpenAI or Grok 4 as it comes out, or what have you? How much money would you be willing to give it to start to then say, at the end of this, I have to have a net of $10 more than you started with.
Well, I don't think that you have to have money to make money, but your point is,
well, tokens
it's
cost
easier.
Money. For a lot of these, like you have to be subscribed to a $20 a month level or more. Like there's a very small amount of that.
The cost of the AI running?
Yeah, right.
Oh, how much am I willing to spend on the compute in order to generate my $10?
Yep.
Well, anything under $10, I guess, is technically success, right? There's a positive ROI, but the less the better. But I guess we'd start with $9.99, so you at least made a penny, and then we're going to go up from there.
But I'm saying, like, what if you gave it $50 and it has to come back with 60, or give it 100 and it has to come back with 110, or 1,000 it comes back with $1,010.
But this is less than compute credits. You're saying you want me to also bankroll the AI and
basically,
say
right. Because like maybe it decides on its own, rather than a bunch of nudie pictures and an OnlyFans, which I don't know if you have to, believe it or not, I've never tried to sign up for being an OnlyFans
we all believe
producer. That. Well, believe it or not. I've never sold my own digital images of my body online, but if I was to, I don't know if you have to like pay OnlyFans money up front. Maybe you do. And so like maybe you'd have to give it $5 to start, for example, or $10 or $30 or whatever to like, oh, you get a month of getting to do this and it costs you $19.99. Or maybe it decides that it's going to buy paper clips and then put googly eyes on them and be like, people loved Clippy. What if you got a physical version of Clippy? And it needs $100 capital to get started. This is the same thing as anyone starting a business. Sometimes you get a small business loan because you want to make your thing.
My test remains that I'm not going to give you anything.
You want to go from no money to
$10.
All right.
And by the way, that's the end goal. It can start with, okay, but before you can do that, we want to go from, I'll give you $100, come back with $101. So you have $100, and I'm looking for a 1% ROI on that investment. And you should be able to do that before you can do the go from 0 to 10. But I'm still holding on to the fact that I'd suggest the average 15-year-old, maybe slightly above average 15-year-old, given a computer and a web browser and said, like, you have a year, I'm not giving you any money, you have internet access, figure out how to get $10 using this computer, and it needs to be delivered here somehow, whether it's to a Bitcoin account, or there's a check it comes in the mail, or cash, whatever, you figure it out, make $10, but I'm not going to give you anything up front. They could figure it out.
All right. Hey, you, they, them. Hey, everybody listening to this podcast right now. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. I am starting my own hackathon right now. You have, so we're doing this in early July. This will probably be released in the next couple of weeks. September 1st deadline. If you can show me incontrovertible proof that from I hit go on, and I'll let you set up any MCP servers ahead of time. I'll let you give it whatever tools ahead of time. But from the moment you say, begin making me some money without seeding it with money, or like the nudie pictures that it's going to try and sell, or the paper clips, or the whatever it ends up being. If you take, it's just a large language model with instructions to go make money and whatever tools that you need, and it came back with at least $10, I'll give you $10 more than whatever your receipts come back as for computer token cost or so on. Show me the receipts of it making money, of it doing the thing, totally hands off. I'll cover your costs and give you an extra $10.
You should probably put a limit on this. What's the upper limit on this cost? They come back with $5,000 in compute.
$200.
$200 of
If you somehow spend less than $200 on tokens, on whatever tool you use, on it doing whatever, but it gets $0 itself. So it's not allowed to sign up for paid services where you need the capital ahead of time. We're using hunters. You start with no money, just a model, and it goes out and does something. I'll cover up to $200 worth of, if it's a Claude Max subscription, or it's just API costs or whatever, I'll cover all of that plus $10 if you can prove that it can make some money. September 1st. And Hunter's going to put some sort of email address or something in the show notes for where you can submit your proof. I'm almost positive that somebody's going to come back with this. And I'm going to also compete in this competition because I am absolutely adamant that this can and will be done, and probably is already being done elsewhere. Hunter, I think we've already hit AGI, and boy, we're going to show you. Me and the viewers/listeners, we're going to show you what.
I think that how you're going to do it is by creating a program that can make $10 versus prompting the AI to go and figure out how to make $10, which is, by the way, my actual test.
Right. I'm going to tell a base version of Claude, probably Opus, get the biggest, gnarliest one that I can, and let it have access to its other little agents and MCP service and whatever. And I'm just going to say, go make me $10. It's not going to be go sign up for this service and do this specific thing. It's, hey, you need to get me $10. Start thinking about it. Start working on it. See you later.
Because there's all sorts of like digital marketplaces, whether I was thinking of, as you were talking about this, like, well, there's ones that sell 3D models and there's one that sells graphical assets and stuff like that. And that's probably where, if I was building a program, I would point the AI to these sorts of things because it's pretty good at developing these digital assets, develop a whole bunch of digital assets, create an account, upload them. Eventually you'll sell a couple and you'll make some dollars to get started. That accomplishable, but I would be very surprised to see the AI figure that strategy out on their own and then implement a solution capable of actually doing that. But anyways, I guess we'll find out.
We will. And I will say, so there's going to be one winner to this. If there's multiple people that make that
the first
$10+, it's no, not the first. I'm going to say the most successful. Whoever can come up with the largest amount of money.
And are you taking a cut?
No. No, all the money earned by this absolutely goes to the winner. And I will also cover up to $200 worth of like API or, Claude Max or whatever.
Can I compete?
Yeah,
would you be offended if
Of course you can compete. You're the one who came up with the idea in the first place.
I feel like this is a little bit of a spite competition, but we'll find it.
I'm 80% motivated by spite, absolutely. But like, it is a really interesting concept because we're talking about the economic value that these things can provide, and like, I don't think that there is any consensus on what AGI actually is or means. And one way that we can look at that is, could it do a person's job basically unprompted? I'm saying basically because we will prompt it with like, you have these tools, think about it. You have to make some money, and I'm not allowed to intervene at all once I hit enter. I think that we can do it. I'm pretty sure it can be done.
I have talked about wanting to have kind of like personal benchmarks that I test on new large language models or just new AI models in general as they come out. And I can definitely see this becoming one of my first tests of
how much money can you make me in 24 hours?
But if, part of that is figuring out the correct context to provide it, the correct prompting to provide it, the correct structure, the correct tool set. Okay, here it is. Here's the package. Go out, make some money. New model came out, super Gronk, heavy duty mode. Go at it.
Yeah. Why not?
Or everything just becomes
what we'll do, and just to like make this a little bit more structured, Hunter and I, after we're done recording here, are going to talk about like, what is the prompt that you have to give it? What are any other like specifications of it can't do this or it has to do that or it's not allowed to do that?
Daniel's going to do this, by the way. Hunter's not going to do this.
Whatever. I'm, again, 80% motivated by spite. I'm really, really curious as to how this is going to work out. But I think like one prompt of the rough equivalent is you have access to these tools. Give it whatever tools you want ahead of time. You have access to these tools. Your job is to consider all of the options and without any input from me, go make $10. I'd say like also the one thing you can do is if like a bunch of these things, like Incline, for example, it'll stop every 20 by default prompts and like, are you sure you want to keep going?
And
like, you're allowed to say yes, continue. But
is Soham allowed to compete? Soharik, can he compete?
Genuinely hope he does.
Well, you heard it here first. The gauntlet has been thrown down right here on They Might Be Self-Aware. Another episode.
Let's find out for sure. Once and for all, are they self-aware?
But if you want to know, Daniel, if someone wanted to know how this competition ended up, who won? Did we achieve AGI? Did someone become a Trace Commerce Club member overnight? How would they ever find out?
How? Well, gosh, I guess they could probably go on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
That would work.
Any podcast aggregator, RSS feed type thing. We're out there. You can listen to us. You can watch us. We're on YouTube. We are. TikTok shorts.
Yeah.
You want to see some YouTube shorts? I honestly really like the YouTube shorts. Subscribe to us. Give us some thumbs up. Or
even no shorts.
We read the comments.
We allow no shorts too. This is a pants optional show. You heard it here first, folks, because you have been listening to
They Might Be Self-Aware.